What do I mean by saying life goes on? Wong Kar Wai's second feature film, Days of Being Wild, is a story about three individuals as they all come across each other one way or another, from them falling in love, breaking up, and to having intimate conversations. They all interact with each other, no matter how big or small these interactions may be. So you would think that the story of these three people all coexisting together would affect their outcomes, but it doesn't. Because this movie about three people at this current point in their life isn't really the story being told. The true story is what happens after the movie finishes. Because Days of Being Wild tells the tale of how even though you may feel like the main character, such as these three, in actual fact, no one is, because in the end, life goes on. Life does not stand still when the story we watch is over. And I'm not just talking about the movie, but this is also true in real life. We all feel like we are the main character of our own story, that the problems and issues we have to deal with are just obstacles for us to overcome so that we eventually become the hero of our own story. Some people call this a hero complex or the protagonist theory, but to some degree, it does feel true, that we are the Luke Skywalker of this world, and everyone around us is just side characters to help us through our journey. But even though we want to be the hero, wanting to believe that our true purpose in life is fulfilled, when our story ends, purpose fulfilled or not, life moves on from us. Because life is not a movie. There is no 3-act structure or a hero's story arc. Life is just a journey, and it's a journey that everyone takes. And Days of Being Wild emphasizes that ideal by how this movie plays out. There are three characters that feel like the main character of this story. At first you believe it could be Lee Zen, the concession girl. Then it quickly switches to Yadi, a rich boy who lives life without a care. Then finally you believe it could be Tide, a policeman looking to become a sailor. But by the end of the movie, none of them become the protagonists, because Wong Kar Wai ends the film by introducing a brand new character. This new character symbolizes how life moves on from the other three characters. The idea being that no story truly ends because there are so many people out there waiting for their story to be told. When we look at the character of Yadi, someone that represents a person who has this hero complex by the way he acts and treats people, he is a character that does not care for the consequences of life, so he acts however he feels. This leads him to disrespecting Lee Zen and even a gang organisation after he refuses to pay for an illegal passport.
I don't have your money.
This arrogant nature puts himself in situations that are not ideal, from passing out in the street drunk and getting robbed, to eventually getting shot by a member of the gang he annoyed. Yadi does not care because he believes he is the main character of his story. A story that had tragedy, as he was abandoned by his real mother twice, once at birth as she gave him away, and then again when he tried looking for her and she did not care to look at him. This tragedy would normally leave him room for growth, but he doesn't want to and never tries to become a better person. To him, in his arrogant ways, he sees life revolving around him, that the people around him should be blessed that he even acknowledges them. Because of that, he does not care who he puts in danger. From that outlook, he nearly gets Tide killed. Tide even confronts Yadi on his reckless behaviour. But in the end, for Yadi, he gets shot and slowly dies on a train. This becomes a symbolic death as it represents the true story of the movie. The train continues to move forward just like how life will, with or without Yadi. When it comes to Lee Zen, she feels like the main character of a romance movie. After falling in love with Yadi, she then gets her heart broken by him. She has to come to terms with this moment in her life. But if this was a romance movie, then in the end she would find love again. But this is not how her story goes. After being tossed away like trash by Yadi, she finds comfort in speaking with local policeman Tide. They both form a bond. However, this bond does not blossom into anything more than friends. Tide tells Lee Zhen to call him if she ever feels lonely.
有你打電話俾我㗎，但係呢個時候我都會喺度。
A romance movie would make Lee Zhen call Tide at the end to proclaim their feelings for each other. But life goes on, and Tide, who was waiting for a call, decided that he was waiting too long, and leaves his job as a policeman and moves away to become a sailor, leaving the phone to keep ringing after he goes. And then there is Tide. He feels the most like a protagonist. He is nice and respectful, has a humble story, and wants to follow his dream of becoming a sailor. But Tide is a character that we are only introduced halfway through the movie. This is an early sign that any character can come in and take over the role as the protagonist, because no one is the true protagonist. Everyone in their own head feels like one, but in an instant you can easily become the side character in someone else's life. For the first half of this movie, Tide was a side character, barely seen and noticed, but through perspective change he became important in the life of Lee Zhen and was now presented as a main character. Humble and caring out of everyone in the film, he is my protagonist in the movie. But that doesn't mean he is the main character. This is because we never see him reach his dream of becoming a sailor, which would have been the climax of his arc. He said earlier in the movie that he always wanted to be one, but because his mother was ill, he became a policeman to stay closer to her.
我諗住行船㗎，不過阿媽身體唔好，屋企又冇其他人，我咪留低咯。
A dream that was cut short through reasons that he was not in control of, that sounds like a protagonist. But that dream is something we never see him attain. Because at the very end, as Yadi dies, Lee Zhen goes back to a concession stand and Tide goes to follow his dream, we are introduced to a brand new character. We see him getting ready. Ready to go where? We do not know. All we do know is that the lives of the other three have now moved on, leaving only this person. A new story has begun and a new main character has been introduced. Because this is the true story of Days of Being Wild. No individual story matters because by the end, another will emerge. Because Days of Being Wild is all about how life goes on.